Well, folks, welcome to another Agency Action Show. I'm Kurt Von Annen. I'm here with my awesome co-host, Toby Cryns. And like Eric said on one of the other shows with the WP Minute, sometimes we got to mention AI right up front so we can feed the algorithm. And I know, Toby, you got a story about using some AI this week, right?
Yeah, let's feed that beast. Here it goes. So I realized it. So I have 10 employees right now, and I'm realizing stuff is getting done without me involved, which is awesome. But it also means I've kind of lost connection to what's getting done sometimes. And we have at any given time 10 to 15 bigger projects, meaning I have deemed them arbitrarily things that I want to keep tabs on. That's really all it means. And I was having trouble. We use ClickUp, which is a very robust project management tool, has every feature you can imagine. And it was difficult for me to figure out where things are at. Where's the blocker? Like when are we delivering the project versus each task? And so I built last Friday, I went to AI, and by AI, I started in Lovable, then I went to Cursor. And the tooling doesn't even matter because you can do this anywhere. But I said, here's the problem, help me solve it. And it solved it. In 4 hours, I had a tool, an app, a web app that solves this problem to a very high degree in a very simple way. And so ultimately, it doesn't really matter what I built, but I solved a business problem without paying a per month seat fee. I can share it now with my team, and they can edit the content in there. It's kind of a mini project management tool. And so one afternoon, built this tool. It's going to really help me in my business and figure out what's happening, where to communicate, where to devote my energies. And it kind of blew my mind, not so much that I could do it, because I kind of assumed I could do it. But once I built it, I'm like, holy cow, we are paying ClickUp, I don't know, $200 a month for something very similar to what I built in an afternoon. I'm not naive enough to know that I can build ClickUp in an afternoon, but probably if I said to some developer, you have a month, rebuild ClickUp with AI, I bet you we could get it close enough, let's say. And now I'm out 1 month salary, and we have a tool we no longer have to pay for in the same way. And so there's this concept that I've heard that the per seat model of SaaS services is going to die. And this is what I experienced, because now I don't have to pay ClickUp for this tool that I built in an afternoon that is literally free now. It runs free. I'm using, an external database. Everything's free, and maybe someday they'll charge for those. But so the learning for me was, well, my costs are probably going to go down over the long haul as I build more of these services in-house because we have the capability to maintain them. But also, like, this is a learning about where the world is going. If someone can go to a AI tool and say, hey, build me a website, and you can do that to a high degree today with many tools. And so it made me wonder too, like, well, where does the Mighty Mo need to be as an agency? And I'm thinking long-term, it's not website building as much as probably prompting. It's at some point, that's where it's going to be, is prompting and then managing a code base that was prompted, and AI probably designed the site, something along those lines. You can see it getting there, but then it's more strategy and features. So Kurt, I know you've been working a lot with different AI tooling and have experienced a lot, specifically in the WordPress space, but also beyond that. What do you see as like maybe where AI is maybe changing your workflows today, and where you kind of see it going in the short term, let's say 3 months out?
There's a term that people use a lot that I've always had somewhat of an issue with. They say I'm a content creator, right? And it's like, well, so what does that really mean, right? But I'm on a ton of shows, right? I'm doing like 5 shows a week. I do a bunch of lives. I make blog posts for things. And people should know, like, that they're like, well, why does he do all these? Why is he always on all these video things? The video things, for me, become the original cornerstone sourced content that I can use to generate other forms of content. And I'm using AI tools to do that, right? Split this off into video clips. Now take this transcript and generate a summary post about that. Embed the original video, right? And so if the original video gets embedded in an AI textual piece that is, formed from the transcript that I spoke, it's my voice. They're my words. They're my concepts. And so I've been leveraging AI from the perspective of how do I expand my voice, not how do I ask ChatGPT to write me something and claim it as my own, right? I'm using AI to take my content and expand my content and repurpose it in multiple ways. And this has been a really interesting take for me because in our space, Toby, let's just be real. We're in a space that's a very small segment of society, right? Where everyone's like, we're going to code this and code that and Claude and Claw, Open Claw, and all these things. The mainstream world is really not on that channel. I mean, they're just not, right? And so for me, I'm like, okay, how do I fill the gap for what my people need? Like, I'm really big on this focus idea, right? I have this thing I do every Friday, Fitness Focus Freedom Friday. It's my thing. And every Friday, I kind of review what have I been focusing on this week and what value am I adding to my clients? And this AI trip for me has been, how do I take these 5 projects that we're kind of responsible for some content with, generate a ton of content, preload a content sharing schedule, a calendar, and provide these services for our clients in an equitable, safe way. They're not going to get dinged for, AI content or get, devalued for SEO. And so we've really pushed hard in that space. And I've been amazed at what we've been able to create in a very quick way.
Yeah, you bring up a really neat point that I've also experienced, which is the general people that you and I would speak to as potential customers of our marketing creative agencies, like and dev agencies. These people are looking at technology for technology's sake. They say, "Hey, we think AI is can be helpful," and I always think like my job as an agency owner that helps people make the most of their budgets for marketing and sales is to continually focus their resources on the thing that pushes marketing and sale, or not marketing, that pushes sales and leads. And if AI can help us get there, great. And that's what you're talking about. Like, you're not just like spinning up apps. You're saying like AI is actually helping me make better use of my time to generate more leads, more sales. And I think
Exactly.
that is,
You
sorry.
You touched on something in your earlier statement that triggered something for me, and it's interesting because we say this all the time, right? You and I are on different pathways, but so many things are similar. You were saying maybe we're not going to be developing websites, maybe AI is going to do this, but I'm going to drive you back to the focus of what your role is with your consumer, with your customer. You're a problem solver. I'm a problem solver, right? They have a need, they have a pain point. We have the solution, we help problem solve that solution, whether that's a website or content or curriculum development or building a separate app for them to manage something. Those are the skills we bring to the table, and we have to adapt as the technology's shifting.
So let's talk about that pushing forward, because it requires a certain amount of energy that I think you and I are familiar with in terms of pushing clients forward. And you can't push them too hard. You need to kind of meet them where they're at and bring them one step forward. But let's talk about our businesses and changing, because AI, for better or worse, is going to change the way a lot of our processes and tooling exists. And so, how much focus does it take to push forward as a business owner? And if you had a week of a retreat where you went and planned for a week, where do you think you would invest that week? If you could, would it be on process, cost limiting, delegating, hiring, marketing? Where would you, if you had to choose like a week retreat to invest, what would be the topic of that, or the area that you'd focus on?
That's a really transparent kind of question you're asking me. I personally, I think I need to work better on delegation. I need to work better on, I need to actually hire a couple of people instead of contract. I need to have, reliable, steady people on call where I can say, hey, I need you to do this for me. Right. That's what Kurt Von Annen needs. The next thing for me would be process. I'm really big on process development. And I think if we don't keep an eye on our businesses, things continue to spool up. And if we don't assign a process to it, it can get out of control pretty quickly. And I think the value of our businesses is based on the processes we bring to the table. I can give you a perfect example. We do a lot of consulting work here at Manana No Mas. One of the people we consulted with recently was a marine dealership and a service department for the marine dealership. They work on boats. We gave them some homework, right? We met with them, we had a discussion, we had a PowerPoint, but then we gave them some homework. When they submitted their homework, Toby, it blew my mind because only a couple of weeks had passed. And they went from 58% shop productivity to 77% shop productivity. Now the goal is like 90. Just to be clear, right? Like they're not at the goal yet. But I said, "Whoa, that's amazing! You know, it's only been a couple weeks, and you went from 58 to 77." And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "No, I don't think you understand. Yeah, like I don't think you understand what you just accomplished because that's a 19% increase. If you lay that 19% over the original 58%, that's a 33%, increase in revenue." And he goes, "Oh." I go, "Because every bit of labor you do also sells parts." So your business, you have the sales part of your business that sells boats, and then you have the fixed operations part of your business that does everything else. And the everything else part of your business just went up 33%. And
Yeah.
you didn't have to hire anybody. You didn't have to burn out your staff. All you did was change a couple processes. And that to me is why I focus on process so hard. Because if you can look at someone that runs $1 million business, give them a little tiny piece of training or consulting, and then watch them do $330,000 extra next year, that's to me where the big rewards are. And I think that's where Manana no Mas can go if I keep focusing on process and delegation properly.
Yeah. We've, interestingly enough, we've been working on, just in the last really week, but also the last, we'll say a few months since I hired the sales guy. We've been, had a 2 hour call with my sales guy yesterday where when I think of products, like people have on their website, sometimes they'll have a hosting product, an SEO product, and you go there and maybe it has pricing. We've never had pricing on our website for strategic reasons. And now, because our team is getting bigger and we're trying to process more leads, what we're going to do is publish pricing for the first time on our website. And the goal is to help our sales team more than anything. Our sales team needs clarity so they can more quickly pump out a contract and gain acceptance of the contract. And that's the feedback I'm getting from my sales team. And so there are a couple ways to write. There's like the extremes. Like one is you just send them to a website. We say, we don't want to talk to you, buy the product, and then we'll deliver it. That's like one extreme. The other extreme is like, we will listen to you. We'll create a custom proposal and we'll get back to you in a couple days with that proposal. But we're kind of like thinking like in the middle. We're going to have that conversation. We're going to reference the website pricing and say, which of these do you want? It'll have all the information. Effectively, it's going to write the proposal for us. We'll still send a proposal, get a signature, but it's going to streamline the proposals because each proposal will be standardized. Um, we also, this is probably, this is an actually thing that we're already doing, but we're I discovered something this week that hoping it's a process change that I hope is going to generate a lot of revenue. And it's nothing mind blowing, but if you're not, we were not doing it up until this week, and I'm going to have to push my team to build this in. But the gist of it is, we get a task from an existing client, and it might be like, "Hey, can you add a slideshow to this page or something like? Can you add these logos to this testimonials page?" Sure. While we're doing that, we're going to create a Google Doc that we're just going to peruse their site, look for other stuff that's broken. Copyright in the footer says
Yeah.
2021, that sort of thing. And we're just going to compile a list. And I did a pretty comprehensive one as a prototype last week, a prototype document. It took me about an hour and a half to produce a really nice document that we could then scope. So we didn't scope it, but I'm like, here's all the things. It has screen grabs, arrows, URLs. Hour and a half to build that. And if they just want us to do a small part of that, let's just say, hey, can you update the footer? Can you update, the menu? It's probably paid for with just the small thing. If they say yes to one of the bigger things, then now we're making money. And I'm like, some of these things are no brainers, like the copyright and the footer. They're going to say yes to it, or they're going to do it themselves. And so when we think of process, that's one thing. This doesn't have to be like, process can improve the bottom line out of the gate. First of all, like this is a process that I'm hoping will be a moneymaker. It's not a huge lift. It's stuff we're already kind of doing anyway, but we don't have it like as a daily routine and a task per task routine. So when you think of uh, these process things, particularly like as you think about delegating, because that seems to be, we've talked, I think, you and I have talked about this in the last week, I think. Um, Part of it is like when you delegate, how is delegating going to earn you more profit?
Yeah, so I think that's the stumbling block for a lot of business owners to think about because all they see is the head count. They see the cost, they see the expense. And the trick is, and I guess this would be like, are you a business leader that has risk aversion or not? Right? Is there a risk in adding headcount and expense? Well, yeah, but you can mitigate that risk if you know that you delegate something and you're going to become super productive in another way. Um, I love the training, the personal touch, the especially like the blended learning that we get to do as an agency. I love that work. I absolutely that to me that's where what gives me the energy. Oddly enough, it's not what pays me the most, right? So I do struggle a little bit with that, but I want to do the things that I want to do, which means if I delegate some of the more menial, website building type actions, if I delegate that to somebody else, that creates more time for me to do that stuff that I really enjoy doing and still creates revenue.
We, yeah. And so it's just to build on that, when we hired our sales guy, it was our first time ever hiring a sales role. And
Yeah.
it was purely money out the door at first. And so risky in that sense, like I'm just going to pay this person and maybe it'll work out. And it's not, it's a significant amount of money rivaling the money that I bring home from the Mighty Mo. So it's a huge investment.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure where we're at today, but I can just feel the momentum of that risk. And there's this thing about risk that when I left my previous job, which was at a university here in Minnesota or in Minneapolis, when I left, a bunch of coworkers, I mean, almost every coworker, like the response was, "Oh, you're so brave. How
You're
will
so
you
brave.
survive?" Like, well, you go into the wilderness. And I personally never felt that way, but I know everybody views risk differently. And one way that I view risk is like I think about the worst case scenario. So let's say a thing you're going to hire someone, Kurt. What's the worst case scenario? You're going to lose your business. They're going to tank everything. You're going to, now you have to go get a real job.
Now you
Uh,
gotta go
the,
get a
the,
job.
the best case, well, they're going to really pay for themselves. They're going to make your business more profitable. It's going to be less work for you. The likely case, I've found in doing these calculations over and over, and they're not number calculations. It's just like you do it on paper and you just okay. But the likely case is that they're going to make you more money. You're going to have more time for your family and business. It's probably not going to be on the extreme end. It's going to be just moderately more, and your business will grow and it'll put you in a place to do the next thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because you say that this I got the same response. When I said, "Oh, we're gonna escape California and move to Kansas." "Oh my god, you're gonna move to Kansas? You're gonna move your business to Kansas?" I'm like, "We work online. I'm not seeing this as being some big brave thing." But people are like, "Oh my goodness, you're so brave. You're really gonna risk it all." Risk it all? What are you talking about? And then we moved here. We saved 65% on our overhead and ended up getting faster internet connections. Like, I'm not seeing this as a lose, right? This is a win-win. But I think successful business people kind of have that weights and measures, right? We're able to say, okay, yeah, there is some risk here, but the potential for benefit far outweighs the risk. So I'm going to do that. Whereas people that are more internally wired as like 9 to 5, blue collar types, it's just strength of the planet. I'm all about it, right? Like I love loading trucks. Like if I could have loaded trucks for another 20 years, I would have done it. Um, there's nothing wrong with it, but you've picked something that doesn't incorporate a lot of risk. But what's interesting is it is risky because people in that space are subject to, if you're blue collar, you're subject to injury, you're subject to illness, you're subject to layoffs, you're subject to all these things. Whereas if you choose to run your own business, actually you mitigate a lot of those other risks. You just have to be able to be a salesperson as well. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. And I can see, like in your shoes, you hired a salesperson, but you're kind of wired as a salesperson, which makes that decision probably a higher risk quotient for you than the average business owner. For instance, I have a friend that has a plug-in company, and he's very naturally, I shouldn't say naturally, he has trained himself over the decades to become a really good marketer. And so when he hired someone for marketing a couple of years ago, it had disaster written all over it. Because how's he going to empower the marketing guy to do marketing stuff when he's overseeing all the marketing stuff? So now it's a few years later and he's empowered marketing people again, but his mindset's changed and the results are completely different. They're more positive.
Yeah. Interestingly, I struggle with my dev team. I struggle with managing my dev team more than any other position because I'm a developer. And like, it's like that knowledge hurts. Yesterday, I was in a site we're building for a client, and we're using Beaver Builder. And there's a rectangle in there, like with a headline and an icon. And I click on it, and it's an HTML module, which if you use one of these builders, I'm just like, what the heck is going on? There's a module for like icon plus headline. Why are, and that I struggle with that as a leader of a development team because I'm a developer. Also, like, I also wonder. One thing I always challenge people with when it comes to hiring it. I think it's a lack of experience, but if the choice was like, I need to get more sales, oftentimes their first idea is like, well, hire a marketer, and I'm always like, marketers are money spenders. They're not money getters.
Not money getters.
Their job is not to get money. Their job is to spend money. And so I always think like, if you get a sales oriented marketer, if you put the pressures in the right place with the marketer, just like, so we have an SEO guy, Glenn, who's amazing. He leads our client projects, but he also leads the mightymo.com projects. And both with the clients and the Mighty Mo, our focus is on the end goal. And oftentimes it's sales and leads almost every time. And so I tell him, I'm like, when he gives me your reports, and now he's, he doesn't give me reports on traffic and da-da-da. I'm like, how many sales do we get this month? How many form submissions do we get this month? And that's it. That's like the metric. And then I say, how do we improve that? And we don't get into like the details, the numbers. Frankly, I'm like, I don't care how many visits we got. I'm just like, how many sales or how many leads did you generate for our company and for our clients?
Well, you're touching on a couple of interesting things there, right? And so when we talk about marketing versus sales, when I talk to other business owners, and this kind of falls into that risk and that role and that kind of that whole discussion, it's who has skin in the game for the success of this project, right? Who is I think you're absolutely right. Sales generates revenue. So when I talk to other business owners or I'm consulting with people or even just at a networking event, I go, hey, tell me what's going on with you lately. And they're like, well, I was kind of holding back a little bit. I've got this out and I've got this proposal and this thing brewing over here. And I didn't want to overbook the schedule because, but they're giving me this whole like very conservative outlook over like their calendar. And I'm like, your calendar is blank. And they don't know how to deal with, because I'm pretty blunt. I go, your calendar's blank until someone cuts you a check, until you have money in the bank, you haven't sold anything. And so you're making plans and you're banking on things that haven't been bankable yet. And that's the difference between hiring marketing versus sales. Marketing people are like, we're going to create this content. We're going to put this net out here. We're going to see if SEO takes over. We're going to try a little this, try a little that. And I'm like, when's the last time you picked up a phone, called a potential customer and upsold them?
Yeah. And another thing the small agencies struggle with is simply answering the phone when the lead calls or responding to the email when the lead's sitting in their inbox. Frankly, I struggled with this for many years myself. So I should say this too. I struggled with that exact problem for many years. Let's say, I don't know, might have been the first 5 years of the Mighty Mo. I was like, I have to respond to this sales email because I know it's going to lead to a phone call and da 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 da. And I had to change my brain to be like, this is my job. My primary function is to respond to these emails and place the calls and answer the phones.
Yeah, I get to call this person. It's so interesting to have that that mind shift, that thing that can happen. Um, when you shift your mindset from marketing to sales, from risk aversion to being risk friendly, when you put yourself out there, the rewards can be really great, but it has to be something that's consistent and workable. And to me, like I said, focus is the thing for me. I have to take a little time block space once a week and just go, what have I done? What have I changed? Who have I helped? And what have I generated this week? And it's not to pat myself on the back. It's to go, am I still forging forward? Right? Am I getting better or am I not getting better? And if we don't take those focus moments, I feel like we have the potential to slide backwards really easily.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. Your customers, when you have those conversations, they're gonna tell you where to go. Like everybody, like there's people, we'll call it, maybe some experienced business people think this way. I don't think this way, but like the whole idea of a business plan. I need a business plan before I get started. In my, we've talked about this. No, you don't. Go talk to someone with money in their pocket. They'll tell you what your business plan will be. And this kind of leads me, I had an experience this week with a current client that we're building a feature for. And this feature that we're building might be our best work to date. And it's almost built. It's 95% of the way done. And it looks amazing. It's like an app within WordPress. It does a very specific marketing and sales related function. It's a front facing thing. So it's an interface. It's amazing. Like really cool. The best work we've done. We've invested a ton of time in, and we're losing money on it now because we care that much about delivering awesome stuff. The client, this is where you have to listen to your clients and meet them where they're at. The client is pissed because their perspective was, and they emailed me this really candidly, which I was appreciative of. They said, I emailed your project manager with this text change twice and they didn't fix it. And so it's like changing the word the to the word like something very simple.
Yeah.
Another one was like, I told them to capitalize that I in that word. And so we've built this amazing app that it truly is great. And all the client sees is that I is not capitalized. And it was a grounding for me to be like, if we fail on the communication, the whole thing doesn't even matter. It's a bomb of a project because the client's going to be not hire us again.
Yeah. That there's so much wisdom in what you just said, right? Because nobody knows what you're doing unless you tell them you're doing it. If you're not communicating value in what you're bringing to the table, they're not going to see the value in it, right? That's like when I'm trying to sell something to a nonprofit, for example, right? People assume nonprofits don't have any money. The dollar's the dollar. You and I have talked about that before. The dollar's the dollar. It is what it is. It costs so much to do it. If it's a passion project, I'm just going to do it for free, right? If I feel that passionate about it, we'll sponsor it. Like we sponsor the website for our local mountain bike team. We just do it, right? Because I know for me to sell it and charge them and it pain in the butt, I'll just give them the website. But if it's a nonprofit that I don't have skin in the game with, this is how much this costs. And when people go, oh, but nonprofits don't have money, I'm like, did you miss the USAID scandal? They all have money. You just don't know where they're getting it from. If you can figure out where they get the money from, you can work those channels. So like here locally, there's small nonprofits and they all say they're broke, but there's a larger nonprofit here that has funding and they dole out funding to the smaller organizations. So if you make friends with the person at the bigger nonprofit that doles out the funding and you find out, hey, what are the open channels? What are the columns on your spreadsheet that my company can help fill? They'll put you into all those spaces. But you have to do the legwork to find those opportunities. You can't just assume everything's a no.
Yeah, and one way you do that, getting back to what you said earlier, when you're at a networking event and you meet someone, you got to be super clear about what it is you're selling. And so for me, and we've talked about this in the past, it doesn't even matter what it is, but it has to be something that when you're talking to Joe the plumber, they go, okay, I know what that is. So what I'll tell people, I say, I build websites. The Mighty Mo builds websites. That's what I tell people, which is so dumb because like dumb in the sense like, well, first of all, it's not dumb because everybody understands it. They go, oh, they all have a a vision of what that means. No matter who you talk to, you can talk to your 80-year-old grandma and she has a vision of what that means. Now, it's probably nothing near what we're doing, but like, that's why I say it. I want people to leave there going, I met a guy who builds websites. So if I have a website building need, I'll contact that person versus somebody who, I mean, this is a great, I've talked to people at these events, networking events. I've talked to them for 15 minutes and I have no idea what they do because they don't know how to explain it. They've tried to explain it, but
Yep.
I leave there, I'm like, I don't understand a word you just said, in the sense like they over complexify it, like I can't help them now.
I look at it from the perspective of if I meet somebody and have a conversation at an event for 5 or 10 minutes, I should be able to leave that conversation and run into somebody with a need or a pain point in that area and go, I just met a guy named George. He does that. Gotta talk to him. If I'm unable to make a warm recommendation for you, then you have not described yourself properly. I used to have that problem. I had a guy that we're still friends today, but he pulled me aside once. He said, Kurt, I love you, bro, and I want to refer you to people. I want to help you grow your business, but I got no idea to tell people what your focal point is. And that was a wake-up call. I had to realize my main service is actually business consulting. It's not website making. My main service is business consulting. I'm really big on business process and communication and all these things. And our output. So when people say, what do you do? I go, well, primarily we're a business consultation firm, but our primary output is typically a website. And then they go, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I would add, like, as you're having those conversations, try, if I'm in active networking mode, I like to get out of, I want to talk as little as possible in those scenarios. So that's part of, like, hey, I build websites. In your case, you say something similar that's pretty basic. Do you have a website? That's kind of where I'll go next. Like, oh, you do? Do you ever run into any issues with your website? And I'm not actively selling, I should say. Like, these are just conversations that I enjoy having. That's why I'm in the business I am in. I enjoy, like, learning about how people are using their stuff. So I'm not like looking for an opportunity, but oftentimes those conversations, well, hopefully they leave a bigger mark than, like, I do WordPress sites and buy, hopefully
Yeah.
that, but also, like, it's an opportunity. You might discover something that leads you to a sales conversation.
So I have a patented question that I use for a lot of folks. I'll say, what does your business do? And they'll start to tell me. And sometimes, to our point, they're really vague, right? And then I'll say, well, that's kind of interesting. How do you onboard new people when you hire them? Right? Well, that causes them to think process and think about, well, we do that. And then maybe they'll ask a question, or maybe I'll ask them another question, right? Like, well, when you hire people, do they have to come to the office to fill out the paperwork, or do you just have them do it like in an online portal? And I
Mhm.
drop that seed and they go, online portal. I go,
Right.
yeah, you don't have to bring people to the office all the time. If you hire someone to have a remote job, the last thing you want to do is bring them to the office physically if you just hired them to be remote. You can onboard people through online training. That's the specialty what my company does. And then they go, oh, and then sometimes it leads somewhere and sometimes it doesn't. But I ask them questions and their answer will dictate the flow of where things start to go.
Yeah. I think too, as we reach the end of our time here, wanted to just quickly talk about um, making money as a high level concept. You've probably run into this in your house where you see your credit card statement, you're like, oh, $17 for Netflix. Oftentimes for us, it's Disney Plus, because I'm like, Disney Plus, who's even using it? Because I'm not using it. It's like my kids or something. Like, surely we don't need that. I'm not using it. And so let's say it's $12 a month. I will cancel that. I'll spend all this time, cancel that. Then I'll hear it from the kids and the wife and be like, oh, okay, well, resubscribe. And now I've just wasted a half hour of unsubscribing, resubscribing, pissed people off. Meanwhile, we have 2 cars. One of them is mostly just sitting in our driveway as an expense, and I'm paying monthly fees for the car to buy the car. I'm paying insurance. I'm paying annually
Registration.
registration fees, and who knows what else. Cleaning it, it's just a headspace. Just, oh, now I got to clean the car. It's full of junk again. And so I just saved, well, first of all, I didn't save 17 bucks. I didn't save the 12 bucks because I ended up paying it anyway because we need Disney Plus, it turns out.
Yep.
And I'm spending, I don't know, $5,000 a year on a car that is not used all that much. Where should
Yeah.
I invest my time as a business owner? This is the business question, is like, what in your business, and Kurt, I don't know if you have an answer today, but it's kind of like a question everybody should probably look at. What in your business is sucking up the bulk of the money? What are the big ticket items? Don't worry about the small ticket items. It's like, what are the big ticket items? So in our business, people complain about SaaS services as an agency owner. Agency owners complain about SaaS services. It's $100 a month. It's $20 a month, 50 bucks a month. And meanwhile, they're not responding to the sales emails that could generate thousands of dollars a month.
So I'm of two minds here, Toby, and I think the audience is probably pretty clear that both of us focus on revenue. Like making revenue is the number one goal, right? We got to make the revenue. Um, but uh, I snapped a gasket this week. The family, I cooked a wonderful dinner. The family didn't put any of the food away. I went to bed early. I got up the next morning and the food was never put away. It spoiled. And the waste like made my brain snap. Like I got angry. And typically I'm not an angry person, right? So I was like, why is that bothering me so much? And I got real with it. I thought, well, revenue's down. I haven't really sold that many projects in the last 6 weeks. I'm probably more sensitive about money than I usually am. Just being honest, right? And I said, okay, I've been in business now for a couple of decades. How much of this crap am I still paying for that I am not going to put on a customer's website? And so Elementor is one of those tools. It's great for some people, but I haven't used it in years and I pay for it every year. I just got a notice last month that it renewed. I just got a notice that my Zoom account renewed. Why am I paying for Zoom Premium when I'm not doing a lot of sales calls that are more than 45 minutes and I could just put them on Google Meet anyway? Like, so why am I voluntarily just pissing this money out the window? And it caused me to take action. I went ahead and I canceled some of these scheduled renewals that happen. And something interesting happened, and it relates to the earlier part of our conversation. Let's say a website that I built 4 years ago is still using that Elementor uh, license number. Let's just say that happens. Have I actively worked with that customer in 4 years? No, I haven't. Have they paid for maintenance? No, they haven't. Have they been paying for ongoing licensing, or have they hired another agency that I don't know about that's still using my number? I don't know. I don't know. But what's the worst case? I'm going to take a Tobyism. What's the worst case scenario? They email me and they're ticked off because I'm not giving them free access to something they're not paying for anymore? Well, that doesn't make any sense. What's the best case scenario, Toby? They call me up on a 4-year-old website they haven't maintained or modified in 4 years, and they go, "Hey, this isn't updating anymore." And I go, "Oh yeah, we don't use that tool anymore. In fact, I thought you went to another provider. If you we can take over your website again. Now the choice is yours. Do you want to be on a maintenance program that would cover the cost of resubscription, blah blah blah, right? So I know that it's covered, or we rework the site because you're due for a rework anyway." And it's always easier to sell to people you've already cracked the ice with. It's always easier to get more funding from people you've had funding from in the past. So getting new business always costs more than growing existing business. So it hit me like a ton of bricks. The best sales tool I have is turning off these license numbers and getting people to drive their communication back to me.
That's wonderful. We're going to end on that. I love that. Um, Kurt, well, this has been the Agency Action Show with Toby and Kurt. Kurt, how can people get in touch with you?
After they like, share, and subscribe to this episode, they can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn, and our agency is Mañana No Mas. So Mañana No Mas on socials and mañananomas.com. Toby, how about you?
Well, after people like, share, and subscribe this episode, they can reach me on LinkedIn as well, Toby Cryns, Cryns, or they can go to the Mighty Mo, and that's mo.com, and use our contact form or call us from there.
Always a pleasure, Toby. Have a
Same
great
here.
day, folks.